Okay, so we have a new episode of Legends and Leaders, and today it's great to have Anthony here. Anthony, you're one of the people that has, taken this finance world by storm. You kind of came up with a new approach in the space and multiple times created different investment vehicles that have achieved unique success. And now in the alternative space, you found your own niche and host the SALT conference, which a lot of people have learned so much from. And I think now you have a new book as well that you're working on that's now finalized that you're bringing out. So I'm excited to have you here and to get into your story.
I got the book right here. My
There
team
we
was
go.
trying to get marketing out of the book. Look at that, right? So yeah, no, the book comes out April 16th. I got a couple advanced copies from the publisher, but thanks for having me on. And not sure if I'm a legend or a leader, but I do have a set of balls, though. Are we allowed to say balls in your podcast? I'm assuming
Sure.
you do, right? Yes, I do have a set of balls, and I think that's a big lesson for young people. Don't be afraid. Operate without fear. Operate with integrity. If you have good ideas, be passionate about them, and don't care what other people think about you. Your generation is getting blasted by these phones. You got the phone and the social media, and everybody's comparing themselves to the phone. And of course, your friends are filtering themselves. And so you're looking at a filtered life when you're living an unfiltered life. But I got a news flash for everybody. Everybody's living an unfiltered life. So, relax and don't care too much about what other people think about you.
Definitely a good way to look at it. So where did your passion for investing and business leadership come from? Like when did you start to think to yourself like, hey, this is the direction I want to go in with my life?
Well, and I'm going to really date myself. So in 1975, I was 11 years old. I just turned 60 this year. And my father came home and he got his hours cut back on his job. And there was a tremendous amount of anxiety in the house. And so anyway, I went out and got a job. I had a paper route and I was hustling Long Island Newsday. For 2.5 years. I built one of the largest paper routes in my area. I peaked at about $55 a week, which at that time was like a decent amount of money. I gave 30 of it to my mom. I kept 25 for myself, and I put it in a little savings account. Now, this is going way back in the day. So First Federal Savings and Loan in Port Washington was paying like 6% interest on this passbook savings account. And I wanted to make more money. So I bought Long Island Lighting. I got my father to open up a stock account for me. And I bought Long Island Lighting because it was a dividend-bearing utility. And so I thought the utility would be safe and I would earn a dividend off of it. And now, I think you'll love this part of the story, Ben. So that was at age 12. At 7 years, that manifested itself into about $1,100. And I cashed it out. Why did I cash it out? I had no money for spring break. And so it was my sophomore year in college. And I said, all right, I'm only going to be a sophomore once in my life. This is my life savings. I'm going to blow it on spring break. And I liquidated the account. Now, fast forward, Long Island Lighting actually went out of business. They had some fraud and they were mishandling their books. So I missed the bankruptcy, thank God. But I had a wonderful life experience in spring break. See that? So you get the good, bad, and ugly in life. But you ask me a question. That's how I got involved. I went to law school, though, because I was a nervous kid. I was a little insecure. I was worried about my future. My parents had no real money. We grew up in the middle class, but we didn't have a lot of money. There was a lot of savings around. And I thought, well, I may need the law school degree. If things go really bad in business, I'll be able to practice law. So it was a naive approach to going to law school. But I directly benefited from that because two of my law school classmates are partners of mine now here at SkyBridge, and they both do an exceptionally good job here. And so life has a way of working out. That's a big message to people. You don't have to overplan your life. You don't have to get everything right. You just have to keep working. You have to never give up under any circumstance.
So you met some great people at Harvard, but I think you've mentioned before that like your time at Harvard Law School was like one of the most important things and not the most important thing to laying the foundation for your success. Like, was it just the environment that was there? It was just really a lot of smart people? Was there specific things that you learned there? Like besides the people that you met, like what helped really lay this foundation for your success from Harvard?
Well, when I say that, it's primarily because of the prestige of Harvard. I mean, who's kidding who? I grew up in a blue collar neighborhood, blue collar parents. I never went to college. And so places like Goldman Sachs, I can't speak for Goldman Sachs today, but 35 short years ago, places like Goldman Sachs were hiring from the likes of Harvard or Harvard Business School or Columbia, Stanford, places like that. And so I don't think I would have gotten a bid at Harvard at Goldman if I didn't have a degree coming out of Harvard. So that was seminal because once I got to Goldman, they had some of the best practices in the world of finance, incredibly collegial group of people, very well run organization, very compliance centric. And I wrote down in my diary, the week that I graduated from law school, I wrote down in my diary that I would run my own business as soon as I got my school debt paid off. And so I had 6 figures worth of school debt. A lot of money back then, not as much today, but I worked it off over 7 years. I paid off my student loans Memorial Day weekend of 1996, and I left Goldman Sachs at the end of their fiscal year, which at that time, way back in the 90s, was in the December timeframe. So their last day of their fiscal year was November 30th. So I left, started my first business on December 1st, 1996. And it's been, 27 and a half years of being an entrepreneur. I did sell a business successfully in 2001. I ended up working for Neuberger Berman to abide to my contract. Neuberger got bought by Lehman. So I was at Lehman Brothers and Neuberger for 3 years, but it's really been more of an entrepreneurial odyssey for me since I left Goldman. And I always wanted that because I told people, I watched my father struggle at work. He had a difficult boss, and he was really beholden to the economy, his boss, and what was going on in his union. And so that created a lot of anxiety in our house. And I said to myself, okay, I got to have my own business, and I got to see if I can make it on my own. And the tagline was control your own destiny or somebody else will. But boy, I was super naive because, what you learn when you have your own business, everybody's your boss. You have clients. I mean, they're your boss, and you work a 60 to 80 hour work week, and I travel all over the world. Not saying I don't love my job, but I think you have to sometimes, I say this sardonically, be careful what you wish for because, this organization has got several $1 billion under management. It's a great little firm, but it requires a lot of work, a lot of manpower, a lot of hands-on activity inside this organization.
So when you were starting up Oscar, how did you kind of get the funding for it or convince people to join in? Or was it just internal funding that you had from your time at Goldman? How did you kind of get it off the ground?
Well, it's a really good question. I had accounts. I was a money manager at Goldman. And so what I did was I was very upfront. This is another thing. Again, you operate with integrity. I went to my boss and said, listen, I always want to have my own business. I'd like to start my own business. I've gone to the people that have equity, meaning they own stocks. I've asked them would they consider putting some money into my business. The other stuff, fixed income, all that other stuff, I'm leaving here at Goldman. I said, moreover, I'd like the prime broker at Goldman, so you're not losing any assets. All of the stuff that we're doing will be held at Goldman. And he was pretty cool about it. I mean, he obviously tried to talk me into staying, but he was pretty cool about it, I left. I got sick with stress and nerves over the Thanksgiving weekend. I had a fever. My first day as an entrepreneur, I had a low-grade fever. I think it was mostly stress inducted, but I had no safety net. So it's not like, I have this rich father, I'm going to go leave and go start my own business. If something goes bad, he's going to wire me money and, smooth over my mistakes, And so, and again, I don't begrudge anybody that has that. I want my children to have that, frankly. So I don't begrudge anybody, just pointing out that there was a lot of uncertainty and a lot of fear. But I think a lesson for your viewers and listeners here is, despite that, you got to do it anyway. I mean, you only live once. We know how your life is going to end. Okay, we already know the ending. Okay, it's in death. Okay, or as Mel Brooks says, relax. None of us are getting out of here alive. I mean, don't take yourself that seriously. Find a job that you like, or find a career or a profession or a business that you want to start, and lock on it and do it. And don't be don't be that naysayer. Don't be that gloom and doomer. I was a crypto goat in 2021 and 22. I mean, people were basically, when I say goat, it means like hero and goat, not goat like in greatest of all time, like Tom Brady. And I got killed in 2022, and the media was writing me off, and they had me in pictures of Bitcoin boats sinking and so forth. But Bitcoin's back now, so be true to your convictions, be true to your fundamentals. Don't listen to the naysayers, Ben. That's a big lesson. Big lesson.
So when you decided, Anthony, you're going to start SkyBridge, like why did you decide to focus on alternative investments? There's tons of investments out there. These maybe are seen as more risky. Was it just something that excited you more? Like why this category?
Well, because my business had a hedge fund component to it when I left Goldman. It was called Oscar Capital Management. We did quite well in that. And I think some of the better return profiles and the better money managers are in the hedge fund community. And so that was the reasons for it. It wasn't anything more or less simplistic than that. I like the industry. You mentioned my conference. So we hosted for the last 15 years. We've hosted these conferences around the world. They've been very successful as well. We learn a lot. We meet a lot of interesting people. But that's another thing I would say to you. Pick something you like, and just go for it. So for me, I enjoyed the world of alternative investing, which was a little less traditional. It gave you a lot more tools in terms of operating mobility. And so those are the reasons why I chose it. And some years have been phenomenal. Last year, we had a very good year here performance-wise, but we've had some bad years too. I mean, I think the thing about a great investor, even Warren Buffett, Berkshire Hathaway, 60-year run. I think he's had 2 periods of time where he lost 50% of his capital. And if you cashed him out at that moment, boy, that was a terrible mistake because he's probably the best money manager that ever lived. And I think the big message is when things are not going well, don't get freaked out. It doesn't last forever. The downtrend. The flip side is the uptrend doesn't last forever either. So you can't get too joyous or ebullient at the top, but you also can't get too despondent or depressed at the bottom.
So just be level-headed on both.
I think you got to be level-headed. I think you got to not take yourself that seriously. Bitcoin at 17,000, I was in pain. I'm not going to say otherwise. Bitcoin at 67,000, I'm not in pain, but I don't believe my own BS. You have to stay humble, you have to stay focused, and you have to relitigate the fundamentals and make sure that what you're doing and thinking and believing is correct still. Don't get too full of yourself. I've seen people that actually really believe their own BS at the top and they get destroyed. Don't get too full of yourself is a big message from me.
So Anthony, like you mentioned before that you like to really focus on things that you enjoy, that you're good at, and you try to keep increasing that. So when you're trying to make an investment, like there's obviously criteria that you look for, financial criteria, but I mean, how much of an important factor that of the making the investment is it that you enjoy this category? Like, is that really so significant for you? Like, what are some of the fundamental criteria usually that you've seen do well when you made an investment?
Yes. So here's what I would say. I would say that that's a big component of it. I think liking people and dealing with people that you can trust, a very big component of it. I think that the negative is, you got to be very careful about ethics, particularly in our business. So I tell the people that work here, I watch my father work his, wad off, 42 years on a crane. I have to oil the crane every 2 or 3 hours. And I would tell people, that, it's pain, to watch that. And he was an honest guy. He was an ethical guy. And so there's nothing I need. There's nothing I want. I don't have to break any laws or do anything dishonest. And I would never dishonor my dad by doing anything that would hurt him, or hurt his name. And so, I want to be investing in things that I like, sectors that I like, people that I like. But the ethics is a huge component of this for somebody like me.
The ethics is really that significant because that's the 100%. Foundation, right?
Number one thing, you can't, without the ethics, I don't know what the hell we would do. You know what I mean? So,
yeah.
Number one thing for somebody like me.
Andy, how did you kind of figure out how to manage your time? Because you have you focus on the investments. You also at one point, I think, were hosting a Fox Wall Street Week show. You have your books you're doing. How do you figure out how to manage time to make sure you can take care of all your priorities?
Okay, well, a really, really good question. I mean, I think here's what I would say to you, that you get to be my age in this business, you better learn how to delegate. And so I have young people in this business that work their asses off. They get paid a lot. Some of them are my business partners. They own a piece of the equity in the firm. And it's very, very important that I push out as much work, but also as much responsibility as possible, so that I can free up my time to do some things that I like, and I would tell people in general, managing your time is about saying no. You want to talk about a productivity efficiency mechanism. Managing your time is the number one thing. And so, got to say no. If you say, hey, someone wants to meet with you, it's not relevant, got to say no. An investor wants to come in, they want you to put money in something that you don't have an interest in, got to say no. Now, the flip side to that is that I say yes to somebody like you, Ben Weiss. Now, why do I do that? I do that because somebody had to say yes to me to get me where I am. And so I got to say, hey, no. But I say yes because I want to pay forward what people have done for me. And so hopefully when you are a uber mega star somewhere, you'll remember what I'm saying. And when someone calls on you that's younger than you, you'll pay it forward and you'll say yes to them, So no to things that are not important, but always leave some space for younger people, because you learn a lot from younger people. And it's important to help younger people in the industry.
That's a good way to look at it. It's good to hear that you like to do stuff like that. So you've been involved in various things politically throughout your career. Have you found that politics, Anthony, has benefited business? Has it kind of taken a negative, an adverse effect on it? What has kind of been your stance on that relationship between politics?
Definitely, in the beginning, it definitely benefited my business. I had no access to wealthy people. I grew up in a blue collar neighborhood, so I was a political fundraiser. It got me through the door to meet a lot of influential people, a lot of wealthy people. And so I definitely benefited. I think net, it's been a negative. But that's okay. I mean, I'm an opinionated guy. I believe in the First Amendment. I believe in the right to free speech. My attitude is what I said in the beginning. It don't matter to me. If you can like me or dislike me, I'll leave that up to you. What other people think of me is none of my business. I want people to know where I stand. So when they're doing business with me, if I say something, they know I mean it.
Yeah, you got to stay true to yourself. That's your ethics.
Amen, man. Amen.
Yeah. So you paid, I think it was the $100,000 you paid to have the SkyBridge logo in the Wall Street Money Never Sleeps movie, and I think you made a couple cameos in the movie as well. Besides the fact it's a fun thing to do, of course, was that impactful business wise, or did it kind of help you status and increase your status in certain things?
Yeah, it's funny because that was always misreported. People thought I paid to go in there. What happened was they gave me the script. They asked me to read the script. They asked me to be a consultant, and they typically pay people to do things like that. Okay. And in exchange for that, I asked them to put the sign up in there. So people are saying, okay, well, that was worth $100,000 to him to put his sign in the movie. At the time, it was a great novelty. Did it help my business? I don't think so. Did it hurt my business? No, I don't think so. Did I get to spend 7 days on a movie set with Oliver Stone and Josh Brolin and Shia LaBeouf and Michael Douglas? I did. Was that a lot of fun for me? It was. I was 45 years old at the time, and it was just a fun thing to do. And it was so outside of my career. I'd never seen the inner workings of how a film was made before. And so for me, it was a great life experience. But, listen, I mean, that movie's long gone, man. No one remembers it. I appreciate you bringing it up. But if you watch it on a plane one day, you'll see my name in there briefly. It's funny.
Yeah, I enjoyed the movie. I think people still watch it.
Well, look, people interested in Wall Street, they watch both those movies. They watch Wall Street 1, hard to believe, 37 years ago. And then Wall Street 2, 15 years ago. It's hard to believe.
So just the last question that I have, Anthony, like what are some things that you haven't done yet that you aspire to accomplish now? Maybe different areas you haven't been in that you want to enter into, new investments you want to make. Like what are some of those things?
Well, it's nothing like that, actually. What I want to do, and which I'll probably end up doing, is I want to teach. And I'm working on a course right now for young people, sort of 18 to 28. It's a blend of a course of hard knocks and some common sense. Don't be offended, Ben, but I think there's a certain group of people in Generation Z, millennials too, but, that have been overly coddled by their parents. There's been too much helicopter parenting. And so this would be more of like an intellectual boot camp and a mental boot camp to get people ready for the real world and to think about the real world the way the real world happens, not the way your parents are like, running around trying to save you, or they're giving you like a 9th place participation trophy in soccer and stuff like that. I want to break some habits. And so I'm in the process of setting up a fun course people can log into and learn from. That's my next big thing. I think it's going to be fun. And it's also tied into this book. It's tied into how do you be resilient and in the face of adversity.
Mm-hmm. Definitely important to be like that. And well, Anthony, I appreciate you coming on. I hope people check out your book. Yeah.
My pleasure. God bless you, man. You be well, Ben.
Thank you.